I'm the bad guy. I don't save the day. I don't fly off into the sunset. And I don't get the girl.
Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Basketball Podcast. This is episode number 100 and Kemp, a.k.a. episode number 140. 40 was the number worn by Seattle Supersonic legend Shawn Kemp. Kemp came to mind the other day because I was watching this video. And actually, I can't remember the creator's name. That's actually really bad. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I should know this. Anyway, this woman's in the video proposing an idea where she starts a business where she can consult and provide services for professional athletes to keep them from being victimized by quote unquote thoughts. This is what she said. These are her words, thoughts. Not like what I'm thinking, but the other type of thoughts. She said she would have them freeze their seeds just before they get into the league, and then they would get a vasectomy. So players like Jordan Poole could go out there and succumb to that thirst with no possibilities of having kids with these predators, with these thoughts.
Dude, I saw that live on TikTok. I was in tears. She's the best, man. Heat check. Yeah. I love listening to her talk, man. It's amazing.
Oh, is it Heat Check? Okay,
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So that's Heat Check. Heat Check. Check it out. So she says that she would save players millions of dollars in child support if they would just do this. So this is when I instantly thought of Shawn Kemp. Now, for those of you who don't know who Shawn Kemp is, he drafted 17th overall in the 1989 draft. Went on to have a very polarizing career. Started off with a bang in Seattle next to Gary Payton Sr. and then spiraling out of all-star form in his post-Seattle career. Kemp was known for catching incredible lobs from GP, but he was also known for his extracurricular activities. Let's just say that. Fathering 7 kids with 6 women. This woman's business proposal would have helped Shawn Kemp and probably would have saved him millions and maybe would have extended his career, because there was speculation that his downfall was due to the pressures of fatherhood and baby mamas, not alcoholism. So there you go. Because I remember when he was in Cleveland, he gained a lot of weight. Like he just ballooned. And it's like, this is a man that's just not really focused on basketball. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, my name is Ike Amaechi, and I'm joined by Mitch Orsatti, a.k.a. Sir Mitch of House Orsatti and King from Parts Unknown. And around here, we live by a principle governed by the high and low lives of the world, which means we talk about basketball, especially and specifically the NBA. And we talk about it at any time, anywhere, north, south, east, west, high and low. This week on the show, we are answering a listener question about our NBA Finals picks. Before we jump into the main part of the show, where we will be talking about the greatest villains in NBA history. We're going to make our picks. Pick the greatest villains. You don't want to miss that conversation. I know there's some strong opinions about the most hated players or NBA personnel. We'll see. Before we lock in, let's check in. King is back at the table after a long hiatus, very long. I'm assuming you've been watching games. I feel like you watch more games than anyone on the show. What's your favorite team to watch these days?
I'm invested, man. I'm invested in Fantasy League. I'm invested in my local Toronto Raptor team, and I'm invested in the Golden State Warriors because I like watching Jordan Poole. I just like saying Jordan. Jordan Poole, yeah. I'm watching too much, to be honest. Too much basketball.
So you're invested in the Raptors, but then just before we started recording, you're like, "Don't talk to me about the Raptors."
I'm depressed. It's like what's it called when you try to make yourself, wallow in your sadness? It's like depressing.
It's called masochism.
Yes, right. Because I have to suffer a little bit, but I'm really quick to stop watching. Right, I go there. I engage with the horrible commentating. I watch the horrible
commentating.
He's a hater.
Dude,
Jack Armstrong is not a horrible come on, man.
So you need to recognize that if you're on League Pass and you're watching Raptor games, they're talking about basketball on the other stream. on the Toronto stream, they're not talking about basketball. So if you love Jack, you can go talk to him on your off time. But when the game's on, it'd be nice if you could bring up some basketball information to some degree. They don't even know where any of these guys went to school. They don't know anything about the play.
Hold on, King. How am I going to know which terrible bar to go drink in Orlando?
Exactly.
See, now that would be helpful if I traveled with Jack. If I traveled with Jack everywhere, that'd be great. But I'm literally at home, stuck watching the game, and I'd like some information about the players I'm watching.
All right.
It's great for maybe in-stadium talk, but I don't think they recognize there's a whole audience that watches that game and wants to hear about what they're watching.
Okay. On that note, Mitch, King, I appreciate your time this week. Thank you for joining me. Listeners, high and low lives everywhere, thank you for joining us for yet another installment of the program. Another week, another episode, more NBA, some more high and low. This week in NBA history, the King hit a milestone. Not the King for parts unknown, but the other King. On January 23rd, 2018, Kawhi Leonard, not that King, and his San Antonio Spurs hosted LeBron James and his Cleveland Cavaliers. The Spurs would win the game comfortably, 114-102. But in the first quarter of this game, LeBron would score his 30,000th point of his illustrious career, becoming the youngest player to cross the threshold at 33 years of age. And he would join a small group of players to do so. Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, Dirk Nowitzki, and of course, Mitch's favorite, Karl Malone. So it was actually just over a week ago that LeBron scored his 38,000th point. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the all-time leader with 38,387. So LeBron will most likely pass Kareem this season, barring injury, knock on wood. So does that change anything about where he stands versus MJ for you guys?
Nope.
When he passes
Never will.
Kareem? Wow. Never will. That's wow.
No, it's too late. Firmly number 2 for me.
He'd have to get more rings, like, over the next 2 or 3 years, which is impossible.
Wow. Impossible and never. Wow. These are strong words. Okay.
He's like 39 years old, isn't he? What's going on here?
I don't mean bench rings. I mean playing rings. Not like you sit on the bench and get rings. I mean like you'd have to contribute to 2 or 3 more rings before I even think about it.
Okay.
How about just like making the playoffs first? Let's start there.
That's a Herculean effort. That team is horrible. And when Russ is telling you that the coaching staff needs to fix everything, that's a bad look.
Oh man, I don't know if you missed it last week, but we don't talk about them anymore.
Russell or Lakers?
Are they under 500?
We should have stopped talking about the Lakers like 50 years ago.
At the time of this recording, yes.
Oh man, yikes!
Lakers have been stale NBA product for a very long time.
Damn, this is gonna be a lot of editing. All right. Anyway, hey, actually, no, sorry. I want to come back to Kemp just for a second. The page just popped up on my screen. I was reading about a 100-year-old tortoise named Diego, who I don't know if you guys know this, single-handedly saved his species. I know the word is species, but he saved his species from extinction by fathering 40% of the baby turtles on Espanola Island in the Galapagos. 40% of all the babies.
This guy's the ODB of tortoises over here.
No, he's the Sean Kemp of tortoises. That's why I wanted to bring that up again, because I was thinking Sean Kemp. Accurate and prolific. That's how I described Diego, and Sean Kemp came to mind when I was reading that.
Did you read about how turtles actually talk to each other by some kind of mode of communication that we just discovered too recently?
Turtles or tortoises?
Tortoises.
So when the babies are being hatched on the sand, there's a way for the mothers to be in the water telling them where they are. And they just figured it out this year. Like they thought it was a mystery. How do they know where to go? But now they figured out there's a way that they're communicating.
All right. Well, thanks for that.
I always thought it was just like, good luck. You're probably going to die.
Yeah. But apparently the mothers are in the water doing some kind of communication thing, and they can hear it and then respond to it.
Wow. So Diego's doing the same thing with the females. Huh?
Yep.
That echo clap.
Yeah, clap for real. Anyway, that's a little something for the NBA history nerds. Things are certainly happening in the NBA today, so let's talk about it.
Let's talk about something important.
I have a question from Bigums in Thousand Oaks, California. Bigums. Shout out to Bigums in Thousand Oaks, California. His question is this: are you willing to change your NBA Finals predictions at this point in the season? If so, who will be in the finals? I guess based on what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, so I kind of have a half answer for this because way back on October 20th when we did this episode, I didn't really commit because it felt too early. But way back then, I said that if the Denver Nuggets managed to stay healthy, they would absolutely be favorites to win the title. Look at me now. Nuggets, second best record in the league at the time of this recording. Health remains intact. Jokic somehow playing better than last year and is again at the top of the conversation for yet another MVP award, which would be 3 in case anyone stopped counting.
I do recall you saying that.
Yeah. And on the other side, I wasn't sure between the Bucks and the Celtics. I didn't feel good saying one way or the other, so I hedged a little bit. Now, the Bucks look beatable, as the expense of being a top-flight team in a small market is starting to show, and the Celtics remain one of the best teams in the league and look poised to march back to the finals. But I don't know if I'm convinced, and nothing in the world will force me to believe in a Boston team unless it's the Bruins and they're facing against the Leafs or something like that. So,
wow. This is all jogging my memory perfectly. I actually remember having this conversation and saying that there's no way Denver does it because MPJ is broken and he'll always be broken and back's never getting healed.
Right.
I remember that specific conversation, and then that triggered my memory, and I know who I picked. I picked Golden State.
I'm going Denver, Milwaukee. I'm locking it in right now. So I'm changing in the sense that I'm off the hedge.
Okay. King.
I'm still Golden State. And I think I might have said Brooklyn as number 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I'm definitely still Golden State. And I think I remember why I picked Brooklyn, because I'm like, if there was a year for them to do it, it was just this year, and that's it. Other than that, it's got to blow up. It's got to go.
Right, the window's closed after this
year.
Yeah,
it's 100%. I've been holding on too long. I remember complaining about this back in October. I've been a Brooklyn fan for way too long. It's too much torture. It's got to end. And I definitely picked Golden State. So I'm not changing. Steph's not broken.
You got Brooklyn?
Yeah, because this is the last chance. There's no more 2024 run for Kevin and Irving. No.
Wow.
There'll be another vaccine issue. There'll be something. There's no way it's happening again.
Okay.
We're not doing this again.
Okay. So Mitch and I are lining up on this one because, I think I had Milwaukee, Denver.
You had Denver at the beginning of the year?
I remember arguing with both of you about this because MPJ is garbage.
So
those are fighting words around these parts.
Here's my thing. I have a caveat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to argue with Milwaukee in the East because I don't know. I think
they got some flaws though.
They have flaws.
They have a Middleton,
but
is he ever going to play?
The fact that they're second in the East and they're not at their best. Like their offense has been average at best this season. I think they had the third best offense in the league last season. Mm-hmm. They're currently 23rd right now, which is unacceptable. They're still really good
and still
on the defensive end.
And still second in the East. That's crazy.
Still second in the East. That's the thing. Like their defense is what's keeping them in contention. Not just in contention, but their defense is very good. So my caveat is with Denver. Mm-hmm. I apologize for this. I apologize to myself for this because, of course, my beloved MPJ. Denver's at the top of the West. Jokic is playing like an MVP who is determined to win a third straight. He's completely unlocked. Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray's been up and down, but he's a guy that sort of comes to life in the postseason. Michael Porter Jr. He's missed a few games, but he's been solid. He's getting back into form. I feel like this is probably the one season that I've felt like he looks much healthier.
I have one detail to add about MPJ. The back muscle is a small muscle. There's no chance that he can put painkillers to fix that. He's done. And then one detail about Milwaukee. Chris and Drew are not playing well together. They haven't had a year to play together well. So next year...
Have you watched the menu? Have you watched the menu?
Of course I have.
When the chef is in the kitchen, who's cooking? Huh? Or do you want to become a schmore?
Ray Fiennes? You're not Ray Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes.
Well, let me be Ray Fiennes right now because I have a point to make. I have a caveat.
I'm listening.
Okay, and now this might confuse you, but bear with me. Okay, listen. Memphis is scary. That is a championship caliber team. I'm telling you, that is a championship caliber
team attitude. Go on.
And I can see a world in which they beat Denver in a series. However, the Grizzlies have an Achilles.
Themselves.
Their weakness. No, the weakness is called the Warriors. If they meet the Dubs in the playoffs, Memphis will make it. Memphis will not make it to Colorado. I'm just guaranteeing it. In a perfect scenario, the Warriors kind of coast to the 8th seed or the 7th seed, and Memphis is that 1st or 2nd seed. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be pretty, because Golden State is not afraid of any of these teams. They're not afraid of Denver. They're not afraid of Memphis. They're not afraid of Phoenix. They're not afraid of any of these teams. And I just feel like, especially Memphis, it seems like there's real bad blood. And if that happens, I think Denver's going to the finals. Only because I think Denver can beat Golden State Warriors in a series.
They have so many weapons, man.
They absolutely do. But I think if Memphis eludes Golden State, I can see them making it out of the West. So I'm not sure if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Everyone.
It makes sense. I actually understand a little bit of it, because Draymond will get eaten by the Joker. That's for sure. I do agree with that. And that's the real weakness. But I also recognize that Golden State's not going to let it happen.
I hope that answers your question, Bigums. Hey, just a quick reminder to High and Low Lives. If you want to leave a question for us to answer on the show, drop a DM on TikTok at More High and Low, and on Instagram at Get High and Low. Links are in the show notes. It feels like a good time to lock this segment in a sauna after a 12-hour binge on vodka and tequila. Not a good feeling, man. You can end up in a bad way. I've been there. When we come back, we're going to say hello to the bad guys, the greatest villains in NBA history. We'll be right back with More High and Low. And we are back. I'm Ike Amaechi, and I'm here with Mitch Orsatti and King from Parts Unknown. Back on episode 138, we talked about the worst of the best. And today, we're talking about the worst of the worst, the villains of the NBA. We love watching heroic feats in sports. We can't get enough of that, especially in basketball. People love the hero's journey, but what about the bad guy?
So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
They say that every great hero has a great villain. Like, what would the Dark Knight be without the Joker? It would probably be the Dark Knight Rises. What would Black Panther be without Killmonger? It'd probably be Black Panther too. What would Pulp Fiction be without Marcellus Wallace? Probably look like one of the many, many Tarantino ripoffs people have been subjected to for the last 30 years. Anyway, it's not a movie podcast. It's a basketball podcast, and the NBA has its fair share of villainy. Players, referees, coaches, owners, fans. Over the years, we've seen some people say egregious things or commit unforgivable acts that land them squarely in the category of villain. Some embrace it. Some fight it with every ounce of their soul. Regardless, they exist, and we're going to share our top picks on this episode of High and Low. So let's get into it. Who wants to share their first of the greatest villains in history?
I want to hear King's first.
Let's do it. So
nice.
So I'm going to start with a villain that has very Loki-like personality. He's lost. Loki, like from Marvel. He's lost. He can't help but be evil, and it's LeBron James. He's a little lost. He can't stay on one team, so people can just focus on hating that one guy in that one team. He's all over the place, and that's LeBron James.
Wow.
Yeah, and now followed by the next person he's always put into a conversation with. He's the
Whoa.
Don't spoil your second.
I got so much. Okay.
Whoa. You gotta tell me more about why. Like, I get LeBron, like Black Mask, Heat LeBron, but like an overall top villain in the NBA all time.
Yeah.
He
came to the East.
See where he's going.
Came to the East, like he time traveled to the East just to piss off everybody. hid in the East for years trying to get to the finals. Never played in the West where all the real competition was. He's not a real true villain. Like, has a base. He just floats all over the place. A lot like Loki.
He's not a true hero. He's not a true hero.
Villain. He's not a true villain. For the teams he beat, he's the villain, right?
Okay.
A villain has a home base. He can go bomb it up or, do something, right? This guy just runs all over the league, trying to get a win, ruining other people's chances.
Can I pick up a bit of what you're throwing down there?
Sure.
I think for way too many Toronto references on today's episode, by the way, but let's just stick with the Toronto reference. The Raptors, absolute victims of LeBron being 100%. In the East for years, to the point where they nicknamed it LeBronto, which doesn't really track. It should be LeBrono, but that sounds weird. But everyone in Toronto hated LeBron James because it's like he was that barrier between the Raptors getting to the finals or even getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. They just always seemed to run into LeBron James, and he just did it, and he beat the Raptors in a way that was just very disrespectful. It's like, I'm going to give you 2 games, and then I'm going to win the next 4. How about that?
Man pretended to drink a beer on the sidelines during a game. God, come on.
Yeah, like that's villainous behavior.
That's villainy,
so
for sure.
I'll give you that, and then also not that I need to give you anything. It's your pick, of course, but the decision to me is what would put LeBron James over the top.
For sure,
like that's
his crown jewel.
Absolutely, that's the most pompous, most pretentious,
pretentious
thing that I've. One of the most pretentious things I've ever seen.
You hate his character.
In history.
You hate his inner character. You're not even in love with the fact that he wants to be a villain. You hate his character, like you hate Loki's character, right? He's just a lost little boy that you just get out of here.
It's one of the most "who do you think you are" moments in NBA history. Like, you're gonna go on TV to announce that you're leaving a franchise that is completely invested, a city and
where
a
you were
state
born
that's completely invested in you. Yeah.
Puny little man.
It's like,
smash.
Yeah. I don't know. He just lost sight of exactly what was happening in that situation. His perspective was completely off.
The man had a smile on his face.
The whole time.
That's the villainy, right?
Yeah. God. But he wasn't thinking about Cleveland. He was thinking about Miami.
Right.
He was forward focused.
Pat Riley.
He had the blinders on.
He's a villain, but he's not a mastermind, right?
Yeah, wow. Wow. I guess there's levels to this, right? It's one thing to be a villain, but if you're a mastermind, that's the other. You got to be a mega mind.
Well, I've got a real true villain, and I've got my second one is a mastermind. So I'm glad that lined up. My first one, however, is none other than the Worm, Dennis Rodman. I mean, where to even begin when describing the level of villainy that Rodman conjured up on a regular basis? I've broken it down into 3 categories. Okay, category 1 is Rodman versus opposing players. And I'd really like to highlight his time against, as you called him, my favorite, Karl Malone. Malone is the guy who probably let Rodman get to him the most than any other player that Rodman ever tormented. And most of their feuds happened on the biggest stage, right? Because the Bulls and the Jazz played in opposing conferences. Man, Rodman would elbow, pull down shorts, purposely trip, whisper sweet nothings in his ear, which I'm sure were anything but sweet, and play just endless amounts of grab ass with Malone. He was just constantly grabbing his ass for no reason. And you know what?
Oh, yeah.
Malone being into extremely young girls, I'm sure wasn't into Dennis's advances. But I know I had to just throw that little jab in there. But Rodman just found ways to get under so many players' skin.
Can I add to your Rodman pick?
Of course, yeah. I got more, but go ahead.
I picked Robin too, but I compared him to the Joker because you know Joker loved chaos and Batman can't get to that level. No one could get
100%.
to the level of chaos that Robin had. Lambeer,
And
everyone
that-
tried, but it's where he lived, it's where he breathed. Everyone got stuck in his space.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me to category 2, Rodman versus the Bulls, his own team. Like, I think it's fair to say that the Bulls don't win all 3 of those chips if Rodman isn't on board. They might win 1 or 2, whatever, but like Rodman was so integral. And all that guy ever did was see how far he could push to the point where the Bulls wouldn't take it anymore. Like, late to practice, missing practices entirely, missing chunks of the season because he wanted to go on a trip to Vegas, which I can't wait to watch that show. The team from like top down, owner, coach, players, all of them probably hated Rodman a little bit, but knew how important he was, and that far outweighed any of the negative stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And my last category is Rodman versus the world. Lest we forget that after his playing career ended, the man was an ambassador to North Korea. Like, are we talking about the same sport here? I think Rodman is the GOAT villain in my opinion. I don't think it's even close.
What's Bane's line?
Yeah, exactly.
You think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
That's right. And that's like not even to touch on like his his Detroit days, like Rodman versus himself. I'm sure you could dig into, like, geez, you could go on and on and on about.
And he's damaged.
Dennis Rodman.
He's damaged like the Joker, right? He's damaged on the inside. Like, he was sleeping on couches.
What did you say?
He's off, as they say.
That's a good pick. Man. Dennis Rodman.
Also, my favorite player, by the way, of all time is Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
Favorite shoe.
So
favorite shoe. I bought that shoe.
Me
The Zooms.
too.
Those were my
So
shoes.
good.
I remember those.
Yeah. They had the grip so you could play even crazier in real life. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, what's next?
Yeah, so I'm gonna zag where you guys zigged.
I hope you pick who I think you're going to pick.
No,
not a player, right?
It's not a player. I really wanted to go. There were certain players that I really wanted to latch on to here, but I just felt like, this is too juicy for me to pass up on. So my pick is tied to the relocation of the Seattle Supersonics. Howard Schultz, chairman. Well, hear me out. Howard Schultz, chairman of Starbucks, was he was the majority owner of the Sonics up until 2006, and the Sonics played in Key Arena. That was an old building, a very old building that needed to be updated. Sonics ownership had been lobbying the state of Washington for funding to basically update the arena, and the state just basically just gave them the hand. They tried numerous times, got shot down time after time. So they sell the team to an investment group called PBC, the Professional Basketball Club. Crazy. It's amazing that a group would be called that.
Very professional sounding.
Very professional. But headed by Clay Bennett, an Oklahoma City entrepreneur. So Schultz sells a team to this group and sold it strongly believing that Clay Bennett and his group would keep the team in Seattle no matter what. Personally, I think if you don't have it in writing, it's very presumptuous at the very least. So this new ownership group made attempts to get the city of Seattle to fund a new arena. We're still on the same topic here where it's about the arena. And they had a $500 million complex that they wanted to build out in a Seattle suburb. The city said no.
I can't do it without you, okay? So you do whatever, but...
So Bennett told the league they intended to move the team to OKC. Seattle, same city that rejected the arena proposal, they reject the team's request to be released from the Key Arena lease. And then they sue the ownership group, PBC, in an attempt to lock them in to the lease until 2010. Well, it was all for nothing because the NBA owners would then approve the relocation in 2008, and that was it. I think the only two owners that voted against it were Mark Cuban and Paul Allen. So the villain in the story, that honor belongs to both the city of Seattle and the state of Washington for not investing in a reno, basically, and then rejecting a bid to build a new arena. The story was clear. Key Arena was not in the condition it needed to be in for the NBA, for an NBA franchise, and two different ownership groups made various attempts, and both were denied when the city and state would definitely benefit from having a franchise in Seattle. So specifically, let's say Greg Nichols, who was the mayor of Seattle at the time, he gets a stamp of villainy. Christine Gregor was the governor of Washington State at that time. She gets a stamp of villainy as well. So they're my picks.
It's like 5 villains.
It's like incompetence villains.
Competence, man, and government officials. So there you go. I like to stay on the business side of the NBA sometimes, but
I have some villains that I wrote down that are the villains of the game, but I still have 3 more villains that are in the league. But.
Okay. So let's keep that for the next segment, because right now we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of our greatest villains. And we are back. We've heard our first 3 villains. So let's get into the next 3 villains. Started with King, because you were ready to jump into it.
All right.
So who do you have?
So my number 2 villain, and I think a lot of the NBA during this timeline would believe that he's a villain, and it's the Iron Man of the NBA, the unstoppable force that is Michael Jordan.
I'm Michael Jordan. Stop it. Get some help.
The villain?
The villain. I call him the Iron Man because he was leaps and bounds above everybody, able to fly over everybody, and everyone just thought it was impossible to be like that. They thought he was cheating almost. People said he's an alien. People said it's not fair. And back then, it seemed like he was cheating, like Iron Man cheats with technology. So he was a real villain that somehow figured out a way to just fly in the air back then. And people just couldn't believe it.
Also, he's a psychopath.
Right.
That's the big villain stand there.
Yeah. Plus,
a lunatic.
Iron Man was like that too, right? No care for social norms, just me. Let me take over the world. That's what gave him his competitive edge.
I want to highlight the villainy of Michael Jordan against Clyde Drexler. That's some true villain stuff right there. Psychological warfare.
That's
Kwame Brown.
That's pretty rough.
And then
more on MJ later.
Oh, interesting. Okay, then let me go next. My second pick, and King, I was so glad you brought up the mastermind part. My second pick is none other than Larry Legend.
Very nice shot, Mr. Bird. Larry, please. Nice shot, Mr.
That guy.
Larry Bird?
Yes. Larry Bird.
Yes.
I will say I was tempted to go with Bill Laimbeer, but Laimbeer was primarily he was a goon. He made some all-star teams, but he was a goon, whereas Larry is one of the top 12 players of all time. Bird's main vehicle for his villainy was just the never-ending stream of conscious trash talk that he unleashed on anyone and everyone that he deemed worthy or unworthy, I guess, maybe in his case. Are you a white player who is tasked to defend him? Good luck. Embarrassed, humiliated every single time. All-time greats that were asked to defend him, put in their place regardless of who they were. The man played entire game with his left hand just to prove a point. He would tell opposing teams and players where he was going to shoot from, what he was going to do to beat them, how much he was going to score. This guy just made a living on making other people's lives unbearable for 48 minutes. True villain.
Great pick. Larry Bird winning the 3-point contest. Wearing his
warm-up.
I forgot about
True villainy. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I want to show you guys that I don't want to be here, but at the same time, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be the best.
I forgot about that. That was such a move back then.
Such a flex.
Holy cow.
All right, you guys, what's next?
So let me just drop my villain here. Let me just say this. I'll preface it with this. Some of the greatest villains are mirrors of the hero, but their perspective is warped, and it sort of distorts their motivations and their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You have other great villains. They were once very close to the hero, like Cain turning on Abel, so to speak. So my pick is predicated on the fact that the NBA's greatest hero, in my estimation, is Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So who was the antagonist to Michael Jordan's protagonist? Isaiah Thomas.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Pistons were certainly the bad boys, all right? So everyone knows that. They reveled in that spoiler role for early iterations of Michael Jordan's Bulls. Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer, Joe Dumars, Rick Mahorn, John
Rodman.
Sally, so on and so on. Dennis Rodman, of course, exactly. But however, over the years, as Jordan ascended to the top, we heard less and less from those bad boys. I mean, you even had Dennis Rodman joining forces with Michael Jordan. After Jordan retired, his legend would be cemented. We heard crickets from that team, except for Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas has always taken every opportunity to attempt to knock Jordan down a peg. He's remained Jordan's arch nemesis for his own delusional reasons. So if I need to look at Michael Jordan's antithesis, it would have to be Isaiah. Isaiah is the one player that is, till this day, will stand on the opposite side of the fence of the NBA's greatest hero, in my opinion, Michael Jordan.
I love that pick.
But there's a second part to this. I did talk about Cain and Abel right there. And just as the Dark Knight had the Joker, it revealed a second villain, Harvey Dent, who became Two-Face. And this Two-Face here, the one who was close, and we might not have seen coming, in Jordan's hero journey, that second villain is Scottie Pippen. A man who owes his career,
his name,
to MJ.
Yep.
Similar to Isaiah, Pippen takes every opportunity to throw darts. Now, not 15 years ago, not 20 years ago, but now. Sprays strays in Jordan's direction. He attempts to eviscerate MJ in his book Unguarded and truly reveals that he has nothing but just disdain for his former teammate. It breaks my heart, to be honest with you. For the comic book nerds out there, this is like Robin turning on Batman and siding with Deathstroke. There you go. For those folks that know that.
It's War Machine, man. Not getting the fame and Iron Man being super villain.
Yeah. So what if War Machine all of a sudden becomes Iron Man's greatest villain? That's the thing. Like, it's the ultimate betrayal, which makes Scottie Pippen one half of the NBA's ultimate villainous duo, in my opinion. So
I like that. I want to say one more thing about Isaiah. That guy's smile is like a true villain smile. He's got like that dead stare behind his eyes, and it's this big wide grin. Like, ooh, gives me the shivers.
The smile is nothing because his eyes are soulless.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't see a twinkle, nothing. It's like a mask. You guys watch what's the name of that movie that just came out? Black Phone?
Of course. Yeah, Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
Well,
see how he's just wearing that mask with the big smile?
So disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a smile. But we know that's not a good person. That's not a good person behind that mask. We see you, Isaiah. We see you.
I want to give one quick honorable mention to David Stern here. Like, the non-player villain, in my opinion. That dude has done some horrible stuff, I'm sure. Did some horrible stuff.
Mm-hmm. Respectfully.
Stuff, yes, well. Stuff that I'm sure, doesn't even exist in, like, the popular knowledge.
Yep. Yep. When you are at the top,
yeah, and that powerful, so powerful,
that powerful, there are bodies.
Yeah,
there are bodies buried.
Adam Silver knows some stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Adam Silver has that same Isaiah smile. He smiles, and I'm like, there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
I have 5 honorable mentions for villains to the game.
Ooh, okay.
Right,
so I've spent a lot of time watching basketball. So these villains, they ruined my time watching basketball. They should have never been part of my history and in my brain.
Wow.
So I would like to delete Manute Bol, Big Baby Davis, Corliss Williamson, Chuck Hayes, Chuck Hayes, and Yao Ming, because I had to watch them play basketball.
What?
They
what did
bastardized.
Manute Bol and Yao Ming do to you?
I'll tell you, Manute Bol was taking behind his head 3-point shots at some point because they thought this would be a good way to try to win games in Washington.
He hit him.
I had to watch that. I had to watch games where they kept on doing that.
You're just personally mad that your
Big Baby Davis was so fat and slow. I had to watch him slowly get back and slowly go forward during the games. I had to watch Corliss Williams and Chuck Hayes in Toronto do this, and I couldn't stand it. There was no speed in their movements. It was disgusting. Then I had to watch Houston, my team, use Yao Ming as a jumping pole and have him jump around the basket for an entire season. These things ruined my eyes and ruined watching basketball. I want them all deleted from memory.
All right. So those are your greatest villains in NBA history, according to High and Low.
Why the fuck I can't shoot 3-point shots?
That brings us to the end of this episode of High and Low. Thank you, King. Thank you, Mitch. Subscribe to High and Low anywhere you find podcasts. Make us a part of your weekly routine. You know where to find us. I dropped the information, the details earlier. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. I'll put those links in the show notes just in case you forget. So where can listeners find you, Mitch?
Oh, man. Head on over to Raptors HQ and witness my spiral into wallowing sadness.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
And King from Parts Unknown.
I am still on TikTok, slowly moving to ChatGPT and using ChatGPT to put up posts on TikTok.
FYI.
The robots are taking over, man. Follow along.
King came up with none of his takes today.
That's right.
It was all dedicated to ChatGPT.
Right. Don't out me.
Tell me the ugliest players in the NBA.
Don't out me, man. I can get canceled. You can get canceled for that. You can get canceled for that.
I'm kidding.
It's called cheating in the school board, I think. And they call that cheating.
No plagiarism here, man. No plagiarism here.
It's not plagiarism. It's a robot.
Hey, once again, music is by Live of the Enjoy Music Group. You can find Live on Twitter and on Instagram at LYVE. Additional music is by Sonny Rockwell of The Goodness. It's The Rock. Can't find that guy anywhere. Sound design by Vonn+Abrahamm. This is a Vonn+Abrahamm podcast, just in case you didn't know. So on behalf of King from Parts Unknown and Sir Mitch of House Orsatti, I'm Ike Amaechi. Thank you for listening to High and Low. We'll talk to you next week.